What if I told you that the random incidents you see on the news aren't actually random at all, and that there are patterns hiding in plain sight that most people never notice? But once you see them, you can't unsee them, because I'm talking about the fires that happen in clusters, the shootings that follow similar playbooks, the attacks on places of worship that spike during certain times, and the explosions that seem to hit the same types of targets over and over again, while the mainstream media treats each event like it happened in a vacuum. But when you start connecting the dots the way security professionals do, a very different picture emerges. And once you understand these patterns, you can start preparing in ways that actually make sense, instead of just buying random survival gear and hoping for the best. Which is why today I'm going to teach you how to read these patterns like a professional, how to build your own personal threat assessment system, and most importantly, how to prepare both your home and yourself when you're out in public. Because this isn't about living in fear or becoming paranoid. It's about developing the same kind of awareness that keeps military personnel, federal agents, and security professionals alive every single day. So if this sounds like something you need to know, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Because this is the kind of information that could literally save your life or the lives of people you care about. So let's dive in. Here's what most people completely miss about the incidents we're seeing across America right now. And it's something that, once you understand it, will change how you look at the news forever. These events aren't happening in isolation the way the media presents them. They're clustering in ways that follow very predictable patterns. And if you know how to read those patterns, you can often see trouble coming weeks or even months before it hits your area. Let me give you some real numbers that will blow your mind. Structure fires in urban areas have jumped 8% every single year since 2020. And that's not just because of old wiring or accidents. Mass shootings with 4 or more victims hit over 600 events in 2024 alone, which is absolutely staggering when you think about it. Religious attacks on places of worship have surged 12% year over year, and both accidental and intentional explosions keep trending upward, especially around industrial areas and public spaces. But here's the thing that really gets me, and this is where it gets interesting from a tactical perspective. These incidents cluster geographically, they cluster in time, and they cluster by methodology, which means when you see 3 church fires within a 200-mile radius over 2 weeks, that's not coincidence, that's pattern replication. When active shooter events happen using similar tactics within days of each other, that's documented copycat behavior that security professionals have been tracking for years. The key is learning to spot what we call precursor events, which are the smaller incidents that test response times, security measures, and public reaction before the bigger event happens. Think about a suspicious person photographing school buildings, drones flying over critical infrastructure, or small fires that don't make major news, but still require emergency response. These often happen weeks or months before larger incidents, and they're like breadcrumbs if you know how to follow them. You can start tracking this stuff yourself using a simple spreadsheet where you note the date, location, type of incident, methodology used, casualties, and emergency response time, then plot them on Google My Maps, and I guarantee you that within 6 months you'll start seeing patterns that local news never connects. But it's not just about tracking incidents after they happen, it's about watching for the warning signs that come before them. Social indicators like spikes in inflammatory online rhetoric, escalating protest activity, or economic stress from layoffs and business closures. A 2024 study found that 70% of religious attacks were actually preceded by detectable online threats, which means if you're paying attention to the right channels, you can see trouble brewing. Physical indicators include things like abandoned packages in public spaces, utility problems like flickering streetlights or gas odors, and sudden shifts in crowd behavior that most people write off as nothing. The trick is building what we call a personal threat matrix, which is basically a structured way to assess the risks that are most relevant to your specific environment and lifestyle. Because the news focuses on national stories, but your primary concern should be what could realistically impact you, your family, and your immediate community. You start by mapping your environment, cataloging all the spaces you frequent like your home, workplace, commute routes, places of worship, and public venues. Then for each location you note the physical vulnerabilities, social dynamics, and access points. You want to identify all the critical infrastructure within a 10-mile radius of your home and workplace. Things like power substations, water treatment facilities, major bridges, hospitals, schools, government buildings, and religious centers, because these are potential targets that could affect your area even if you're not directly involved. Then you analyze the demographic and ideological factors in your community, looking for recent tensions, new minority populations that might be targeted, political polarization that's creating visible friction, or recent plant closures and economic stress that's creating desperation, because these social pressure points often predict where incidents occur. You create a simple color-coded system where green means low probability and low impact, yellow means moderate probability or moderate impact, and red means high probability or high impact, and you update this monthly based on local developments and national trends. For information gathering, you need to go way beyond mainstream media because they have editorial filters and delayed reporting that can leave you hours or even days behind the curve. Police scanner apps like Scanner Radio and Broadcastify let you monitor local emergency services in real time, so you'll hear about incidents hours before they hit the news. And more importantly, you'll hear details that never get reported publicly. Follow your local emergency management social media accounts because they post updates about infrastructure issues, planned exercises, and developing situations before news outlets even know about them. Use citizen journalism platforms like the Citizen app, but always verify everything through multiple sources because these platforms sometimes spread false information, even though they're often first to report developing situations. Monitor local government meeting minutes and agendas from city council meetings, school board sessions, and county commissioner meetings because they often discuss security concerns, budget cuts to emergency services, or infrastructure vulnerabilities weeks before they become public issues. And that's intelligence gold if you're paying attention. Your home is your primary sanctuary and your strongest defensive position, so let's talk about how to fortify it properly without turning it into some kind of bunker that makes your neighbors think you've lost your mind. The key is thinking in layers like military personnel do when they're defending a forward operating base, because multiple security perimeters are way more effective than just relying on locks and hoping for the best. Your property line is your first perimeter, and this is where you want motion-activated lighting, thorny landscaping that creates natural barriers, and visible security cameras that deter casual surveillance. But here's an advanced technique that most people never think of. Install infrared trail cameras at hidden approach points to your property because these capture images without visible flash and can detect movement patterns days before an incident, giving you intelligence about who's been watching your place. Your home exterior is your second perimeter, and this is where you reinforce entry points with security film on windows, upgrade your door frames using 3-inch screws in the strike plates instead of the tiny ones that come standard, and consider hidden security bars that don't look like prison bars but still do the job. Install comprehensive door reinforcement kits that strengthen the entire door assembly, not just add more locks, because a door is only as strong as its weakest point. Interior defensive positions form your third perimeter, and this means identifying the strongest room in your house, usually an interior bathroom or closet with reinforced walls, then installing a solid core door, interior deadbolt, hardwired communication device, and emergency supplies. This isn't a panic room, it's a tactical retreat position where you can fall back if someone gets into your house. Now let's talk about fire preparedness because, given the increasing frequency of fires, this deserves special attention beyond just having smoke detectors. You need to plan 2 escape routes from every room, accounting for both windows and doors, and practice family fire drills, where you time your evacuation to under 60 seconds. For upper floors, invest in collapsible fire ladders that cost $40 to $80 and actually practice using them because fumbling around trying to figure out how they work during a real fire is not the time to learn. Alright, so first things first, you want to install multi-class ABC fire extinguishers in your kitchen and near bedrooms, and make sure you learn the PASS technique. That stands for pull the pin, aim the nozzle, squeeze the trigger, and sweep side to side. It's simple, but it can save lives. Now, consider smart interconnected smoke and carbon monoxide detectors that alert your phone, and place them in hallways where smoke typically pools first, not just in bedrooms like most people do. You should pre-position garden hoses that are connected and ready to reach all areas of your house. Identify emergency water sources like pools or large rain barrels for last resort ember dousing, and keep sturdy ladders accessible for roof access to clear embers or extinguish small fires. Store shovels, rakes, and buckets for creating fire breaks or moving burning debris, and keep fire-resistant document bags near exits containing IDs, cash, and critical medical records. For active threat defense, designate a room with a solid door and minimal windows as your safe room. Reinforce it with heavy-duty deadbolts, and keep charged phones and flashlights inside. If you're in a high-risk area, you might want to consider ballistic panels for backpacks or briefcases. These run about $100 to $200 and can stop handgun rounds. Establish family code words for emergencies, where shouting the code signals everyone to get to the safe room without panic. Apply shatter-resistant film to windows, and keep heavy curtains drawn at night to reduce glass shrapnel risks. It's also wise to form neighborhood watch networks using encrypted messaging apps like Signal to share real-time alerts about suspicious activity. Install automatic gas shutoff valves that cost $200 to $500 and close during seismic activity or leaks, and inspect gas lines and appliances annually. When it comes to supply positioning, pre-position emergency supplies at multiple locations including your home, work, vehicles, and trusted friends or family in different geographic areas, because if you can access only one cache during an emergency, you're still prepared. Focus on renewable resource systems where possible, like solar power, water collection, food production, and waste management systems that don't depend on external infrastructure and provide ongoing benefits, plus emergency backup capabilities. Rotate through 3-month supplies of essential items beyond just food and water, including prescription medications, hygiene items, cleaning supplies, batteries, fuel, and basic repair materials. Develop relationships with local suppliers like farmers, producers, or service providers within driving distance for when major distribution networks fail. Last thing, store go bags near your main exits packed with flashlights, first aid kits, water, protein bars, multi-tools, and portable chargers. And don't forget to include small rolls of duct tape because they're surprisingly versatile for quick repairs or even restraining an intruder in a pinch. When you're away from home, your ability to adapt and respond becomes absolutely critical because you just don't have all your resources and defensive advantages. So you need to think like a professional who operates in uncertain environments every single day. The foundation of everything is situational awareness. And I'm not talking about paranoia here. I'm talking about the kind of active observation that becomes second nature when you train it properly. There's something called the baseline and anomaly technique. When you enter any public space, you quickly identify what normal looks like. Things like typical crowd patterns, usual noise levels, and standard behavior. Then you continuously scan for anomalies, like people acting unusually, objects that don't belong, or changes in crowd behavior. Use the Cooper color code awareness system. White means unaware and distracted, yellow means relaxed but alert and scanning for anomalies. Orange means specific threat identified and preparing to act, and red means immediate danger and executing your plan. Train yourself to maintain yellow awareness in public, especially in crowded venues, because that's the sweet spot where you're alert but not exhausted from constant hypervigilance. Always identify at least 2 exit routes from any building or space you enter, and don't just note the main entrances. Look for emergency exits, windows, or unconventional escape routes. Then position yourself where you can see these exits and move toward them quickly. Use reflective surfaces like shop windows or car mirrors to monitor your surroundings discreetly. And listen for what I call quiet zones in noisy environments. Because if a busy street or venue suddenly goes silent, it often indicates people are noticing a threat. For your everyday carry, think of it as a personalized collection that addresses common emergencies and unforeseen circumstances, not just tactical gear that makes you look like you're heading to a war zone. Carry pocket essentials like small, bright flashlights, quality folding knives for utility purposes, and reliable pens that can double as improvised tools. Include compact individual first aid kits with tourniquets, pressure dressings, gauze, and medical tape, because even basic first aid knowledge proves invaluable during emergencies. Maintain fully charged power banks for your phone, and keep cash in small denominations for situations where electronic payments fail. If you're carrying self-defense tools like pepper spray, make sure you have legal permits, extensive training, and a real commitment to responsible use, because the legal consequences of misusing these tools can ruin your life. Create vehicle emergency kits that go way beyond roadside assistance, including tools for extraction from damaged buildings, protective equipment for contaminated environments, and supplies for extended travel if you can't return home immediately. Install vehicle-mounted inverters to power electronics from your car's electrical system. Keep physical maps in your vehicle since GPS systems fail when satellites are blocked or networks go down, and always maintain at least a half tank of fuel to ensure immediate range without depending on potentially closed or overwhelmed gas stations. For active threat response, master the run, hide, fight framework because it's your best chance of survival in an active aggressor situation. Your absolute priority is escape, so identify danger sources and move away quickly and directly. Don't stop for belongings and encourage others to flee with you, but don't let them slow you down. If running isn't possible, find secure hiding places behind sturdy barriers, out of the aggressor's sight. Barricade doors if possible. Silence your phone and prepare to fight if discovered. As a last resort, if your life is in immediate danger, fight with everything you have available. Improvise weapons, throw objects, create distractions. Work as a group when possible, because the goal is incapacitating or disorienting the aggressor enough to escape, not winning a fair fight. Understanding crowd dynamics during panic situations is crucial, because crowds become dangerous when people make predictable but dangerous decisions. Stay near walls when possible, move perpendicular to crowd flow rather than against it, and avoid confined spaces where crowds can crush you. In public transportation, always identify exits, emergency procedures, and communication systems. Choose aisle seats for quicker escape, but window seats for better cover. And in large events, pre-plan meeting points outside venues and avoid bottleneck areas where crowds might become constricted. When staying in temporary locations like hotels, request rooms between the 2nd and 7th floors because ground floors are vulnerable to break-ins, while upper floors may exceed fire department ladder reach. Choose rooms near stairwells for multiple escape routes, and upon check-in, locate all emergency exits on your floor and count the doors between your room and the nearest exit for navigation in complete darkness or smoke. Use additional security measures beyond standard locks like portable door alarms, door wedges, or travel door locks, and carry small door stops when traveling to wedge under hotel room doors, preventing forced entry, especially in budget accommodations with flimsy locks. Scout venue layouts online before visiting malls, theaters, or places of worship, checking for floor plans or virtual tours to identify exits and choke points, because knowing the layout before you arrive gives you a massive tactical advantage if something goes wrong. Now let's talk about the more sophisticated aspects of preparedness that separate people who are truly ready from those who just have a bunch of gear sitting in their closets, because real preparedness goes way beyond individual survival and extends into information operations, community building, and advanced techniques that most people never even consider. Modern emergencies often involve information warfare, false narratives, and deliberate confusion, so protecting yourself requires understanding how to evaluate information and avoid manipulation in ways that most people are completely unprepared for. Practice what's called operational security in your communications, which means avoiding sharing detailed information about your preparations, resources, or plans on social media, or with people you don't trust completely, because broadcasting your capabilities makes you a target. Cross-reference any alarming information through at least 2 independent, reliable sources before reacting. Trust verified sources like local emergency management, police, fire, and reputable news organizations rather than unverified social media posts. And remember that false information spreads faster than truth during crises. Use VPNs on public Wi-Fi to protect your data, disable location services in protest-prone areas to avoid tracking, and consider Faraday bags that cost $15 to $50 and block signals to your phone or key fobs, preventing tracking or remote detonation in rare but plausible scenarios. Individual preparedness only goes so far, which is why the most resilient people build networks of mutual support that can handle larger disruptions and longer-term challenges that no one person could handle alone. Identify neighbors, co-workers, and friends who share preparedness mindsets and start informal information sharing and resource pooling without requiring formal organizations that attract unwanted attention. Create simple lists of resources and skills within your immediate vicinity, like who has generators, medical training, extra water, or specialized knowledge that becomes invaluable during emergencies. Develop specialized skills that make you valuable to your community during disruptions, things like medical training, technical repair skills, food preservation, or security experience, because these make you someone others want to cooperate with rather than compete against. Practice group exercises that test coordination and resource-sharing activities like neighborhood cleanup days or community gardens that build the social infrastructure that becomes critical during emergencies, and advocate for local drills that simulate various emergencies to identify community-wide plan gaps. For those in high-risk areas or seeking deeper preparedness, consider advanced strategies that go beyond basic emergency planning and enter the realm of what security professionals actually use. Apply the gray man principle, which means blending into your environment to avoid attention by wearing nondescript clothing, avoiding eye contact with potential aggressors, and mimicking the crowd's pace and posture. If you suspect surveillance, make 3 consecutive turns to confirm, because most pursuers won't follow such an obvious loop, which tells you immediately if you're being followed intentionally. Take Stop the Bleed courses that are often free through local hospitals, learning tourniquet application and wound packing, because these skills prove critical in shooting or explosion scenarios where professional medical help might be delayed. Practice stress inoculation through realistic scenario training and controlled stress exposure that builds confidence under pressure, because your body's reaction to stress can completely override your rational thinking if you haven't trained for it. Develop renewable resource systems like solar power, water collection, food production, and waste management that operate independently of external infrastructure, and build skills that remain valuable in multiple scenarios like medical training, technical repair abilities, teaching skills, and leadership experience. In extreme cases for the highest risk environments, consider converting closets or basements into reinforced shelters using concrete blocks or steel plating, which is costly at $2,000 or more, but effective against ballistic or blast threats when you absolutely need that level of protection. The biggest mistake people make with preparedness is trying to do everything at once, which leads to expensive equipment purchases without proper training and untested plans that fall apart the moment you actually need them. So let's talk about how to build this systematically in a way that actually works. Start with threat assessment and planning before you buy a single piece of equipment, because understanding your specific risks and circumstances allows you to prioritize effectively and avoid wasting money on gear for unlikely scenarios that don't match your actual situation. Focus on skills before equipment every single time, because a person with first aid training and a basic first aid kit is infinitely better prepared than someone with expensive medical equipment but no training. Since skills work in multiple situations while equipment only works in very specific circumstances. Practice incrementally and build habits gradually by starting with simple exercises like finding alternative routes to work or spending a day without using your phone, then building up to more complex scenarios as you develop confidence and competence. Integrate preparedness activities with your normal interests and hobbies, so camping and hiking build outdoor skills. Gardening provides food security and stress relief, and learning to cook develops self-sufficiency while saving money. Focus on preparations that provide benefits during normal times as well as emergencies. Because solar power reduces your utility bills, food storage saves money and provides convenience, and first aid training helps with everyday injuries that happen all the time. Test your equipment periodically to ensure it works properly and that you remember how to use it, because emergency situations are definitely not the time for learning how to operate your generator or troubleshooting why your radio isn't working. Practice your evacuation routes during different conditions, like at night, during rush hour, and in bad weather, because a route that seems perfect during a sunny Saturday afternoon might be completely impractical during a weekday emergency when traffic is heavy and visibility is poor. Update your plans and preparations based on changing circumstances, new information you've gathered, and lessons learned from testing, because preparedness is an ongoing process that evolves with your situation, not a one-time project you complete and forget about. Maintain perspective about risk and probability, so your preparedness efforts are proportional to actual threats, rather than fears that get amplified by media coverage or social media algorithms that profit from keeping you anxious and clicking. Build relationships with neighbors and co-workers that create trusted networks for resource and information sharing during crises, because having people you can rely on multiplies your capabilities exponentially. Foster community ties through mutual aid agreements, which are informal arrangements where neighbors share skills and resources, and participate regularly in community preparedness initiatives from neighborhood watch programs to CERT training that builds both personal capabilities and community resilience infrastructure. Maintain physical fitness and health that supports emergency performance, because cardiovascular fitness, functional strength, and mental health directly affect your ability to handle stress, make good decisions under pressure, and physically respond to emergencies when your life depends on it. The goal is developing resilience and capability without becoming paranoid or sacrificing your quality of life. Because good preparedness should enhance your confidence and peace of mind, rather than creating constant anxiety that makes every day miserable. The patterns we're seeing in localized incidents across America aren't going away, and if anything, they're likely to increase in both frequency and severity as social tensions continue to rise and infrastructure continues to age. But here's the thing that I want you to understand, because this isn't about living in fear or becoming some kind of paranoid hermit who sees threats everywhere. It's about developing the same kind of awareness, skills, and preparedness that allow military personnel, emergency responders, and security professionals to operate effectively in uncertain environments every single day. And the techniques I've shared with you today aren't theoretical. They're practical, tested methods that work in the real world. And they're based on how professionals actually think about security and preparedness. But more importantly, they're designed to enhance your life, not detract from it. Because when you understand how to read patterns, when you know your environment, when you've practiced your skills, and when you've built strong relationships in your community, you don't live in fear, you live with confidence. And the reality is that preparedness is ultimately about community and cooperation, not individual survival, since the people who thrive during difficult times are those who build relationships, develop valuable skills, and contribute to the resilience of their communities rather than just focusing on their own personal security. So here's what I want you to do. Start small, build gradually, and focus on developing capabilities that serve you well in normal times and extraordinary circumstances alike. Don't try to predict specific events, but build the kind of adaptive resilience that lets you respond effectively to whatever challenges emerge. And if this video has opened your eyes to patterns you hadn't noticed before, if it's given you practical steps you can start taking today, then I've done my job. But this is just the beginning. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell, because I'll be diving deeper into each of these topics in future videos, showing you exactly how to implement these strategies step by step. And remember, in a world where the patterns suggest increasing frequency and severity of localized disruptions, the truly prepared individual isn't the one with the most gear or the biggest bunker. It's the person who understands their environment, has developed practical skills, built strong relationships, and maintained the physical and mental fitness to adapt to changing circumstances, because that's true preparedness. That's what keeps you and your loved ones safe when the patterns we're tracking today become the reality we're living tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.